Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to next episode of the Bank Marketing Show. I'm Dan. Welcome, Chris.
Good to see you, Dan. You good?
I'm doing all right.
There you go. Love it.
Today, we've got a really cool guest and story to go through. I'm really excited about this. Chris, I'll let you kind of introduce where we're going today.
Yes, absolutely. So, Randy Dorn, we're very glad to have you on with us today and excited. You and I got to meet a little bit earlier this year near your home spot in Minnesota. And man, we're sure glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Chris. Dan, it's great to talk to you guys and looking forward to the conversation.
There you go. Well, let me set it up and kind of give you a little bit of an intro here for our listeners. So Randy is the president of My Kind of Bank, which I love, and we're going to talk more about the name and all of that here in a little while. So they're based in West Central Minnesota. You guys are about a $400 million asset bank, and in several in that area. You've been with the bank and in banking for 21 years or so, Randy?
That's right.
Yep, a lot of experience there. And you and your wife and 3 kids, and very much a family-oriented community and situation there, which again, I think plays into our conversation today and all of that. So you have served on economic development boards and a number of other roles too, in community involvement, school involvement, those types of things. So, Randy, we are super glad to have you. And ever since we met, I've been really excited about sharing this whole story with our listeners.
No, we appreciate the opportunity to tell our story, give you a little insight as to who we are. Like you mentioned, we are a community bank. We're an independently owned community bank, and we live in the communities that we serve. And that's a lot of the part of who we are, and we're just excited to tell our story.
Yeah, super. Well, why don't we dive in there, Randy, and give us just kind of a quick overview of kind of who you are, who the bank is today. We probably have perked some ears, and those that maybe watched the episode here are like, okay, My Kind of Bank. That's okay, interesting. So so tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So like I mentioned, independently owned, we're family owned and operated, basically in the heart of Ottertail County. But what launched our change of name is really expanding into other communities. So the First National Bank of Henning has been our legal name. We've acquired additional branches throughout the years, like other community banks. We've been in existence for 120 years, which is unbelievable, and provides that the customer that feeling of security and trust. Right, we've been here. We've went through the Great Depression. We've went through the Great Recession. We've dealt with those challenging times, and the First National Bank of Henning and the national bank name has been very important. And those historians can go back and look at why a national bank versus a state bank holds its value, and that still holds value today. And there's still differentiation there between a national bank and a state bank. But we had to go to the next level. We've had a very growth-minded staff, very strong staff, and we have the desire to change and grow with the times. And as we've done so, and as the economy changes and as demographics change, we sought the opportunity to make a brand change ourselves. And we're rich in history, rich in tradition, but it was time to get with the times, so to speak, and differentiate ourselves from the other First National banks.
I like that you came to that the way you kind of came to that conclusion, right? Like every bank's got heritage and history, and so it's it's just not, it's not differentiating anymore. It's not the top line of differentiation anymore, right? It's not the 100 years, is an important part of your story and will continue to be, but it's not, it's not as attention grabbing kind of as it used to be. And I think, I think if you ask the average consumer, what's the difference between a national bank and a state bank, they'd kind of say, oh, one's national and one's state, but nobody, nobody really knows the difference. And it matters to bankers, it matters to the people in the industry, but, ultimately the brand is what differentiates you and what your consumers remember. How did you kind of get to that name? Like, tell us a little bit about the process, you went through to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to mention, Jim Espeland is our chairman and CEO, and Jim has been with the bank, and it's been his family's bank. And Jim was a big part of our previous slogan of the Community Bank of Otter Tail County. So our 3 locations at that time were all located in Otter Tail County, Minnesota. So the slogan was created, the Community Bank of Otter Tail County, even to the point where we had our own jingle. And customers would sing the jingle to us. So it was very, very effective marketing, right? But we decided that we needed to grow, and we acquired 2 branches in January of 2024, one branch in Evansville and one in Detroit Lakes. Evansville is in Douglas County, and Detroit Lakes is in Becker County. So the idea that we're the Community Bank of Otter Tail County still holds true, but now we're in Becker County and Douglas County. So obviously we don't want to just identify ourselves from the demographic or the geographic location of Otter Tail County. We're outside the borders, and we serve Todd County, Wadena County. We serve other counties that we don't have a physical location. So we really needed to make that change, right? We have 5 locations, multiple counties. We can't identify ourselves as just the Community Bank of Otter Tail County. So that's what really drove that name change. And we had started removing the actual locations off of our branding and just rolling with First National Bank in anticipation that we were going to make a move eventually. And then once the branch acquisition came into play, it was just a natural time to cut the cord and go a different direction.
Yeah, and so it sounds like, though, and I'm being a little assumptive here, but the mindset started going, okay, well, First National Bank, well, that doesn't set us apart. That doesn't say everything that you want to say now with a multi-county geographic footprint now and with a growth mindset, as you say. So it obviously started to kind of get those balls rolling about that. And, so that has to start at the top level, though, right? That can be just your frontline staff or even just your exec staff. That has to include a board included mindset shift. So tell us a little bit about how that happened, because Dan and I, with our agencies over the years, we've worked with a lot of banks that maybe even the staff leadership, such as yourself, might want to make that kind of change. And the board kind of goes, yeah, we've been around for 120 years. We just need to kind of keep it on cruise control, and which is not always the best mindset. So tell us a little bit about that, even at the board level, and how that process started to roll.
Yeah. So a little more just background information. Kaylee Dorn is my wife. Kaylee is our director of marketing, vice president of marketing here, and she's been in that role for roughly 15 years. So we have a lot of marketing conversations within the walls of the bank, but also within the walls of our house. So that never stops at 5:00. But Kaylee and I have went back and forth with different marketing ideas for a long time, and we've marketed our people, which has been a huge success. But advertising in billboards and other communities, we've went back and forth with how do we market our product. And a few years back, so this is well before the name change, we started going towards what if we identified our checking as my kind of checking, or what if we identified our loan as my kind of loan? How do we? That's a differentiator between the loan here and the loan down the street, right? Well, this is my kind of loan. This is my kind of checking. It's a high yielding free checking account, right? I can get rewards on my free checking account. That's my kind of checking, right? So that's what we started marketing ourselves as. We started marketing that on our billboards, and naturally, that was my kind of bank. Ran into that marketing too. So when we made this acquisition of these two locations, it was really Kaylee that was pushing the my kind of bank concept. And I admit myself, I was a little bit. I'm on the board. I'm a little bit old school. I was a little bit like, all right, you want to make that our bank name? That's who we're, my kind of bank. And she was all about it. There was no reservations from Kaylee. She was just yep, that's what we're going to do. And you got to love the boldness. You got to love the confidence that goes along with it. And, she's part of the family. So she has some clout, she has some ability to sway the chairman of the board. So really that coming from her and the marketing team and them being just so confident in what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. That really just obviously instilled the confidence in myself to really get on board as well. And then when you have to approach this from a board level and you have, the years of history with the family as the First National Bank and everything that goes along with the memories and the prior leadership, it's a lot of sentimental value. So we approached it sensitively, but also very boldly from a standpoint of, well, we're in this position where we have to make a change. We cannot continue with what we have. We have to differentiate ourselves. We've been associated with name changes with different organizations. I'm on the board of Bank in Minnesota. We went through a pretty substantial name change from the Independent Community Bankers of Minnesota to Bank in. And through those processes, you learn some things, right? And we really want our customers to be able to take ownership in their bank, right? And we want them to call it my bank. That's my bank, right? And a lot of banks are utilizing that, your bank or your mykindofbank.com, right? They're putting your in the name already. And so we want that ownership. Having the name bank in the name is important. We have a credit union industry out there that's trying to be called banks. They want to be identified as banks. So having that name in there was valuable as well. So it was just really checking out all the boxes. It was a very organic way of coming up with a name. We didn't go through a marketing organization. It was just organic with us. And when we approached the board with it, it was, hey, we got to make a change. We got to make it relatively quick because we want these new communities that we're going to be serving to feel like we're there, right? They're not the ugly stepchild. We're there and we want to be there and they're a part of it. So, those two communities adopted it even stronger than our traditional staff, but everybody's been extremely supportive and the board was extremely supportive, but it did come from a sense of we need to do it, right? You need to be bold and confident and we need to do it.
It sounds like you really owned it, right? Like you can't make a bold change without going all in. And I've seen banks make changes, or even just do marketing campaigns. It's like, well, this is kind of where we want to go, but there's some hesitancy to even do like a bold tagline or, even focus a campaign on a specific customer or branch or something like that. I think there's a lot of like kind of power in what you've been saying of just like we knew we were being bold and we went in knowing that and we owned it. We went all in on this idea. And that's ultimately how you capture attention and with marketing. That's how you get people on board. So I love that approach.
I think, Dan, to your point too, there's obviously a big risk in changing your name. There's a big risk in being bold, but there's also a risk in doing nothing.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I think we at least are with the mentality that doing nothing is a greater risk than doing this and it falling on its face.
That's so great. I mean, I absolutely love that. You guys were almost pigeonholed into a necessity, by your expansion into other counties. But I think our listeners and their takeaway from this, Randy, can be that every bank should have its own catalyst. Whether that is, oh gosh, there's more and more local competition, or credit unions, like you said, or bigger regional competition. So it's a competition perspective. It's a getting stale perspective. It's a desire to market to younger audiences perspective. It's all that, it's kind of like, maybe your encouragement to our listeners, Randy, could be listen to what's going on around you and what those catalysts are as a means to maybe move you into a growth mindset, a new brand mindset, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I wouldn't say that people bank with us because of our name. I don't think that was the case 5 years ago. I don't think that's the case today. I think this brand change opens the door for our customer base to understand why people bank here. And why people bank here is because of who we are, the culture, our staff, our phenomenal staff, the technology that we've invested in. That's why people bank here. They don't bank here because of our name. They bank here because of the individuals that work here and live here. So all the brand change is doing is providing the conversation to start to get people to understand who we are, and then we can tell them who we are, and they can feel like, yeah, I want to be a part of that, or all right, that doesn't really jive with me. But the brand really just gives us the ability to open the conversation.
I love that you just mentioned internal culture too, Randy, because in the conversations you and I had, and I do want to side mention as well and give a lift up to Bank in Minnesota. My agency is involved in state banking associations in 17 states. We're endorsed providers in about 5 of them, all that. So, Dan and I have each spoken at, I don't know how many, state banking association conferences and done marketing workshops and all that. So we've been around the industry. And when I got connected with Bank in Minnesota and saw that it was a modernized brand and that they had taken the risk of not just being another state name fill in the blank association, is as you said, it was bold. It was really cool. And I love that helped with rolling down to where you guys, were going through that change even as a bank. So I agree that it is an industry culture needed mindset shift. And then, when you and I met and I came and did a keynote at the conference there and all of that, Randy, we visited a little bit. And one of the first things that you told me about was the internal culture happenings, that went on and energy there. So tell us a little bit about what happened inside the buildings when you guys did this new brand launch.
Yeah, so I just have to admit, obviously, in a leadership role, you play pros and cons with everything, right? I mean, you're trying to see if the pros outweigh the cons, and for me, I was a little more leery just because of it's my face on that decision, right? But as soon as we started rolling this out to the staff, and the staff just gravitated to it and started taking hold of it, that just reinforced to me that this was the right move. So, I mean, there's a huge credit to our staff for adopting it, and instead of throwing stones, they were really just taking it and running with it. And they should, because the reason this is my kind of bank is because of them, and that's the way they took it. So, when we start throwing out new hats and new gear, and the marketing team has come up with some pretty fantastic stuff that's very attractive and very attractive to young adults. And now we have the children of our staff wearing those hats in the community and taking pictures with those hats and sharing it on social media and really highlighting how proud the family of our staff is to have them working at my kind of bank. So when you see husbands and sons and daughters wearing our gear in our communities and really representing it with pride, it's really just energized them. It's energized the staff. It's energized their families. It's been something that they can gravitate to and hold on to and be proud of. I mean, it's definitely a pride thing, right? It's my kind of bank. That's a statement. It's not a name, it's a statement. And I just kudos to our staff because they have been fantastic. I would never imagine doing a name change or a brand change and it going this well.
Dan and I have both been involved in M&A processes that result in a new brand or brand refreshes and those types of things. And I love that you share that because I do. Dan, you and I know specifically several that it's just almost unexpectedly. It was kind of a side benefit of, wow, it just created all this new internal energy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. From our perspective, that is 100% the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if you're sitting there thinking, hey, maybe we need to rebrand to attract younger customers or to show we're not just, focused on this one county, your employees are definitely thinking that too. And, they're not in a position to suggest a rebrand but what I've seen as stuff like this is announced, the employees are excited, proud to work, for the new brand, proud to, it definitely creates a bit of energy around the office, and you get your employees doing a lot of marketing on your behalf.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we have a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in our industry, and it's no secret as to what has happened with bank branches over the last couple decades, and just something fresh and new provides people the understanding that, well, I don't think we're going to be on the side of being acquired. I think we're going to be on the side of growth, and that's a pretty important understanding for people that are wanting to make a career. When you look at Gen Zs, I think the stereotype of Gen Zs is being passionate about what they do is 100% behind how they choose where they're going to work. They're not just going to punch the clock and 30 years later say, all right, well, I served my time. They want to be involved and they want to be passionate in what they do in the industry they serve. So this really is tailoring towards that generation too, that next generation coming up. They're not a generation of, I don't want to work. They're a generation of, I want to have value and I want to see value in what I'm doing every day.
A purpose. Yeah.
Yep.
Very much so. Yeah. Well, Randy, while we're on that, you've if you would share with our listeners the story, is one of my favorite brand stories of the restaurant story that you conveyed with me, and I was like, when we had that conversation, it stopped me.
Yeah. No, just heading out to eat in one of our communities for lunch one day and wearing a My Kind of Bank polo. Again, credit to our staff. They put together some really good gear for us to wear out and about in the community. So I was just sitting having lunch, and an older gentleman was sitting in the restaurant, and he was kind of looking over at me a couple times, and I was hoping I didn't have food on my face or something, but I was sitting by the door, and as he was exiting the restaurant, he stopped me and he said, so what's My Kind of Bank? And it just opened the door to giving us the opportunity to say, who we are and what we're about. And it was just a case of, feeling confident that I know if I had a First National Bank shirt on, the chances of that individual stopping me and giving me the opportunity to tell our story was probably pretty small. But with something new, it intrigued him. You could see his wheels turning the whole time he was having his lunch. He just had to ask the question, what in the world is My Kind of Bank? So yeah, that's just one of many stories that our staff has experienced wearing their My Kind of Bank gear out in their communities, and they're all getting those questions. So it's just a great opportunity to tell our story.
That's a really cool segue too for us marketers into that's awesome. And how does it start to connect and show up in KPIs for what it is that you're doing as a bank? So talk a little bit, Randy, about you guys have been going through an SEO audit process, and from that side of it, and kind of your marketing methodologies, all the way into structuring a checking referral program that you've done. So, yeah, kudos, thumbs up, really cool about the brand name change and the growth mindset. But now you guys have really started to do some things that are the rubber meeting the road from a marketing and an implementation and a KPI standpoint. So if you don't mind, share some of that with us as well, because that's where it really starts to get traction.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've been blessed with, a chairman and CEO that has always been a proponent of marketing. And it gets challenging because you try to really understand, we're bankers, what's the return on investment?
Mm-hmm.
We want to see the bottom line, what's this making us, or what is this costing us? And in marketing, I'm preaching to the choir, you guys know, you just don't know in a lot of cases what works and what doesn't. And you just got to try different things and hope that it works for the best. And, a lot of banks or industries copy each other, right? They do a lot of things that somebody else is doing that they can feel like, oh, that looks like it's successful, but how do you really tell? And that's why, we've done a lot of things when it comes to, digital marketing, and we've changed our budget significantly to digital marketing, away from the phone book days, advertising in the phone book and those different things, to digital and the search engine optimization and making sure that our name's coming up, and our name's coming up when you're walking into to another bank. You got that potential of My Kind of Bank, generating on your social media scrolling, but all that just takes a lot of intentionality. You have to be on top of it. Doing this audit for SEO is really helping us identify, what's working and what's not. And then on the referral program side of things, again, just trying to get our name out in people's hands, seeing it. You guys can tell people how often somebody has to see a marketing message to actually act on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we understand that. We understand that, I can ask somebody, face to face, will you open an account with us? And it might take 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times for you to have that conversation until they act. So a lot of the marketing pieces are, you got to be visible, right? You got to be visible, and that's going to play well in all aspects. You have to be strong on your website, strong on social media, and strong just in those pieces that your customer is utilizing every day. There's a lot of messages going out there, and you have to be part of those messages. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I think the struggle is, out of 10,000 ads that we all see every day, like being memorable and having the whole package. Right? You might need to see the same ad from the same place multiple times before it registers. If you have a modern, new brand like you do now, that just helps kind of accelerate that process. But it's like too many banks can focus on the ad. Well, the ads aren't working. Well, okay, your website's old. You're not posting on social media much. You've got to have that whole package, because when people see the ad, they click through, and then the website doesn't look great on a phone, or they Google you and your listing doesn't show up. So it's like you've kind of got to have that whole package, and people form a, we're not trying to sell T-shirts here that people can kind of impulse buy, where people have to form an opinion and form trust about you, and that comes through that whole package. So especially with a new brand launch, you've got to think through that and make sure all the pieces are fitting into place.
When you go to mykindofbank.com, you're going to another branch location, right? So we have 5 physical locations, but our website is absolutely a branch of our organization. You can open a checking account there. You can apply for a loan there. You can basically work directly with one of our customer service representatives through the messaging piece of our app. So much of our website and our mobile app now is a branch of the bank, right? That's how we're communicating with our customer. That's how we're pushing advertisements. We're pushing advertisements through our mobile app. So, those pieces have just enhanced so much to provide you the ability to communicate with your customer. because you can't just sit back and wait. We used to do a lot of cable advertising, and it was fantastic because we have basically one network that hits our whole region. And now with streaming services, that isn't as effective as it used to be. Yep. So we got to find other ways to get in the living rooms of our customer base. So it's vital to have a strong website. It's vital to be able to advertise and market through your website, through your mobile device, through your mobile app. Those are just tools. They're all tools to the overall game. And Chris, you mentioned the KPI, and we continue to measure pieces to see where we're at in the growth. And we share that growth with our staff. I mean, talk about energizing your staff when they can see where you were a year ago and where you are today on mobile payments or any of those digital pieces. Then you can see that growth and understand that the investment was worth our while because of the growth that we're seeing.
I think a lot of the banks I've worked with on rebrands prior to the rebrand, it's a lot of oh my gosh, we're standing at the bottom of a huge mountain, right? The name feels like the big thing, but it's not. It's the first thing.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff you just talked about, comes later, website updates and ad campaigns and the new swag, new building signage, all that stuff. And it's this huge amount of work. But what you just said there, now you've got the change in the rear view, and you can kind of really see where you are today versus where you were before the change, and see how all those pieces are coming into place. What would you say to a bank that's staring up at the the top of that mountain and wondering, is this worth it? Right now that you're on the other side, how do you think back to? We talked earlier about convincing the board, kind of compare and contrast the before and the after.
I think the big part is, nothing's going to be perfect. If you've been through a core conversion or if you've acquired banks, acquired branches, you can do the best you possibly can. And there are still going to be challenges. There's still going to be, things that come up that you say, man, wish that wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's no different with a brand change. You're not going to do it perfect. But nobody does. Nobody does it perfect, and it doesn't happen overnight. To use the baseball analogy, you got to hit singles. And every week you come in and you hit singles, and eventually you're going to be scoring a lot of runs. But yeah, if you look at it I got to step up to the plate and hit a grand slam every time, that just doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen for anybody. Nobody just hits walk-offs all the time. Everybody strikes out once in a while. And from a standpoint of, you just got to understand that this is going to take time. It doesn't happen over a 3 to 6 month period. Allow yourself 2 to 3 years to make the change. There's nothing wrong with it taking 2 to 3 years. Some people might appreciate that you're holding on a little bit to the history, right, and the tradition. Other people want you to rip the Band-Aid and just stop. And we are sensitive to the dual messaging, and is it First National Bank? Is it my kind of bank? So we're sensitive to that stuff, but at the same time, things take time. And if you have some questions, or if you have some customers make comments that are challenging for you to take because you take it so personal, you just got to roll with it, because it doesn't happen overnight. And if you want to do great things, you got to get through the challenges that go along with it. But just departmentalize it, segment it. We want to achieve this. This is the timeline we want it achieved. Then the next step is here. And then maybe it's, bringing your staff together and with all your old bank attire and throwing it in a pile and burning it up and saying, all right, we've made the change. It's official.
That old Viking push the ship off the shore, and yep, you're not going back, and that's good. And Randy, I would imagine even some of those, you kind of called it a challenging conversations or a little bit of pushback maybe that you've experienced, those still are creating opportunities for engagement and conversation and all of that. And if a customer comments about it, it means they actually care. They actually, they're paying rather than just, I don't even care. I mean, so even that in itself sometimes to me is a potential positive. It's a potential, significant forward move. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, passion is good, right? Passion
Exactly.
is good. If you have a passionate customer that's passionate about your bank and your name, that's fantastic. You're passionate about your name and your bank as well. And to be able to sit down and have the dialogue of why is just your opportunity to once again explain who you are and who you plan to be, right? I don't think any customer of a bank is going to sit down and say, man, I really wish your mindset wasn't growth and becoming better.
Right.
We all want to be better individually, and we all want to be better at our places of work. And the customer understands that, and the customer wants to bank with a bank that has that mindset because that's their mindset, right? They want, if they're a small business owner, they have a growth mindset, they have a profitability mindset. So for you to have that mindset, they're not going to say, "Well, I really wish you were stuck in the past." So it can be an energizing conversation and sensitive to that. Like I said, passionate people can be pretty fiery about how they feel, but the passion is good. That's where you've, to your point, Chris, you found somebody that cares, and that's what you want.
Yeah. It's one of the oldest PR maneuvers in the book. There is create energy around fill in the blank, and you don't want it to be around negative things. But yeah, if it's around questions, I don't understand why. All that. I love your perspective on that.
If you've got passionate people, there's always the other end of the spectrum where not that people are going to run away from the bank, but they're just going to be a little bit more skeptical and need some time to kind of come on the ship. But the alternative to that is just remaining kind of in the middle and not being memorable, not really exciting, sparking passion in anyone. And I'd rather be on the side of a passionate group of supporters, because that's what's getting you referrals. That's what's getting you word of mouth and more community presence.
Yeah, absolutely. We want advocates. We want our customers to advocate for ourselves. And I'm a big proponent of, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So it's not the name change, it's not the brand change. It's when the customer does ask you passionately, why are you doing this? You have to have a response, right? You have to have the explanation of why you are doing this. It can't just be like, well, it was stale, it was getting old, we need to do something different.
Yeah.
No, there's got to be some meaning behind it, and explaining, well, we want to be bold. Our values at our organization are be bold, empower those around you, do what's right. So that's what My Kind of Bank is. That's why we're going to have that name. So having the explanation to go along with it is vital. People can read through, BS, right?
Yeah.
They want authenticity and be authentic and tell them the truth, and they'll gravitate to it.
Yeah. Randy, I think that stays so true to the heartbeat of what community banking is. That's really, really cool. That it's not trying to be something that you're not. It's actually the opposite of that. It's accentuating, the core of who you really are as a community bank, which is about relationships and service to people and community and all of those things. So it's actually speaking into all of that, not trying to do something different than. So that's a cool part of the story.
Yeah, part of my reservation initially was, My Kind of Bank, it's bold, and there's a lot of responsibility with that, right? If you're telling people that you're My Kind of Bank, well, you better act like it. So, I had some reservations initially from that perspective of, okay, does this mean we have to be perfect?
Yeah. Can we back it up?
Yeah, but then I thought as well, you know what? Nobody's perfect. Every financial organization out there makes mistakes. What My Kind of Bank would be is, once you make a mistake, you own up to it and you try to navigate a solution and you do the right thing. So, I don't feel anymore that this means that we have to be perfect or that we're better than any other bank around, but it does give us a general idea that our values are, we're going to do what's right. There are going to be challenges. Not everybody makes their loan payments, unfortunately. We'd love every loan to be a perfect loan, but there are challenges where, payments aren't made and legal issues have to come about. And that's just the nature of the business. We're not going to be exempt to that because we're my kind of bank. It just means that when we go through those challenging times, we're going to try to do so with dignity and continue to have our high morals and values and navigate those challenging times. And you're going to have a person to talk to. It's not going to be an 800 number in California that you get shipped off to try to get your problem solved. You're going to have a live person to talk to, and that's what I want. That would be my kind of bank, is a live person to help me navigate the challenges.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not that you avoid all the challenges. It's how you, as a bank, navigate them.
Yeah,
and that's what even if you have a customer with challenges and you help them navigate through it, you're winning. You're winning long-term loyalty there, and more word of mouth and those types of things. And it really shows who you are as a bank.
Yeah. Great parts of the story. Randy, before we jump over into our lightning round here, I wanted to hit on one more marketing piece that you had shared that was really cool, and that was kind of this response, if you will, around the mega banks running these celebrity ads, and what that is. And obviously you have a pretty close connection with your marketing department. We won't go any further than that, but so you do. But there's kind of you called it a counterpunch, to the celebrity ads by the mega banks. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
So we have an individual that's actually from our area that is on a commercial with Derek Jeter and Capital One, and you look at those ads and you see those faces and you think, well, how do we compete, right? And from our perspective, our people are what we utilize to compete, and our customer base likes seeing our staff on billboards or in the movie theater on the preview credits, and we've just utilized our staff, and our staff are our celebrities, and they're local celebrities, right? They're in the communities, they're in church, they're coaching sports, they're doing those things, and we just try to leverage our local people, and you can never compete with Derek Jeter. He makes a few more bucks than the rest of us, but we're utilizing those marketing dollars locally, and we're emphasizing our staff and our people, and that's who our customers want to see.
Yeah. You guys have some instances of those. I mean, you mentioned just being a local team coach, and those types of things. But that's a hero. That is an invaluable part of the community, type things. And I love how you guys lift up your people in that, and you don't shy away from it. You actually go straight at it. So that's a super cool way to do it. Good for you guys.
To the point, there's risk associated with that, right? There's risk that you could potentially lose a valuable player, and we're open to that. But the reward has been so much greater.
Yeah, right. As opposed to sit on your hands, and kind of don't risk that. Well, if the payoff is there, then maybe let's do.
Yeah.
Somebody once told me, I had mentioned something about bankers are risk averse, and then they said, no, they're expert risk mitigators. And out of anybody, you understand you've got to take risk to get outsized results. And you're not in the business of options trading and the stuff with a lot of downside, but you're making calculated risks, and you've said that a few times in this conversation of we've got to do some things that make you make you take a step back and think about a little bit more. If you want to get the attention, you want to have marketing programs, a rebrand that works. It's gonna feel a little risky at times. But on the other side of that risk is a lot of upside.
Well, and we're in an industry where quote unquote risk or pushing the envelope a little bit. I think part of what you were alluding to, Dan, is not really just outrageous, crazy stuff, because we're in a highly regulated, compliance requiring industry. So when we say we're pushing the envelope a little bit, we're not just going nuts here. but it's doing things like creating local heroes, Randy, like you guys, are doing, and lifting up your people. And that's compliant. It makes sense. It's not taking some multi-million-dollar risk on some national actor that maybe gets caught in bed with somebody else next week, and then you really got a problem. So isn't that also a risk? So
Absolutely.
It's kind of like, you call it that. And I like what you said, Dan. It's it's an industry that pushing the envelope can set you way ahead of your competition. And it's really not crazy stuff. It's just lifting up your brand and your people and doing it well. Yeah, great points.
Very much a risk-based business. Just most of us come from a finance background, and that's we're understanding of the loan risk or the deposit decay risk and those pieces. That's what we've been ingrained with. But it's all risk, and we just got to identify a risk that we're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Awesome stuff, man. Great story, Randy. I can absolutely assure you that this is really valuable. And Dan, to your question a few minutes ago, I love that knowing that out there, some of our listeners are kind of looking up that mountain, going, Okay, so I think you've helped some folks with that today, and really great representative of the industry and what you guys are doing, Randy. So
thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to tell the story.
There you go.
And it's like you said, it's not perfect, it's not bulletproof, but it's ours.
There you go. Well, while we've got you, we've got to ask you to stick around just for a couple more minutes for our quick lightning round here, and share a little bit more about yourself with our folks too. So if you're good with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, so if you can share a personal best, business best, or both with us.
Ooh, personal best.
Yeah.
Well,
and it can't be that your wife is the marketing director and does a great job. We know that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd say, just in general, seeing the growth that we've seen in the team that we've put together. We had a mindset in 2018. We were a $204 million bank at that time, and we were going to be 408. So our people came up with a $408 million goal, $408 million by 2028. And it's 2025, and I'm happy to say we're about 402 million as of this morning. So, just putting together the team that we've been able to put together is I guess a personal best and a business best. It's we have an astounding team, and they really help me be energized to come to work every day. And setting a lofty goal like that was, and really coming to the point where we're achieving it. That's really fulfilling.
Very cool. Love that. All right. So can you share with us maybe a favorite book or other resource?
As far as leadership type?
Sure.
Book,
can be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a big basketball guy, so anything John Wooden related is going to speak highly with me. One of my favorite quotes that John Wooden has is, "Do not confuse activity for achievement." So I think that it holds true more and more every single day, right? We do something and we figure, well, it's good because we're doing it, but I don't think, especially our kids nowadays, should feel like just doing something is good enough. You should really achieve to do it well. So yeah, anything John Wooden related, I think is good for leadership. You don't have to be a basketball guy to apply what John Wooden was able to put together in his lifetime. So
good stuff. Randy, can you think of maybe the most impactful piece of advice that you've gotten?
I mean, my wife gives me a lot of advice all the time that's very impactful. So I would say Kaylee certainly gives me very, very good advice. But I think, one of the things that she does a good job of reinforcing to me is own it. I ask her, I'm not good with matching clothes. So there's a lot of times I get up and I put my clothes on and I say, Kaylee, how does this look? And she goes, good, own it. And I'm like, I'm not so sure about this. I kind of just threw it together. And she's all about, just go own it. So I got to give her credit that that's one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten is just be confident. I think that's again, going back to our youth, and our youth have a real tough time with just being confident in themselves. And that's because we're kind of a nation of Monday morning quarterbacks that like to sit in the weeds and criticize those that do. And I think it's just important, especially for young people, to walk out the door feeling confident in who they are and owning it.
And that's certainly applicable to this brand change. You guys did it. You made the decision. You move forward and own it. And here you are. Yeah. And moving in success directions as a result. Really cool.
Right.
Yeah. Well, can you think of another one that's something that you tell your team, or even your customers, some advice that you like to pass along?
Yeah, I guess I didn't even realize that this was something that my team was picking up on, but make it happen. I had a 40th birthday last year, and my staff came together and put T-shirts together that said "Make it happen." I guess in my honor. So the whole staff had a Friday where they all wore T-shirts that said "Make it happen." So I guess that must be something that I'm relaying on to the staff is make it happen, right? Just empowering people to trust what they have going on and that they know. And now the next step is just to make it happen.
That's great stuff. Yeah. Very cool, Randy. Well, listen, is there a way that people can get in touch with you? And if there's some of our listeners that maybe want to pick your brain a little bit more or have some other conversation, or even about Banked in Minnesota or ICBA and your involvement at some of those larger levels as well. So how can folks get in touch with you, Randy?
Yeah, great question, Chris. So my email is randy.dorn@mykindofbank.com. You can certainly reach out to our bank. My direct dial line, 218-864-7190. If you want to call me directly at the bank, feel free to do so anytime. As far as, being involved in Bank in Minnesota or ICBA, obviously I'm very passionate about community banking and what we do for our country, for our communities. I do believe that we are the driver and the engine, the economic engine for Main Street America. There's a huge need for us in the world that we're in the country that we're in. We are a big reason that we have the strong economy that we do. We are taking in local deposits and turning those deposits into loans in our investments in our communities, and just get involved. Would love more involvement in Bank in Minnesota locally at the state level, and then on the national level for ICBA. You can go to icba.org. There's a lot of great educational material out there, whether you are a banker or just a regular consumer. There's a lot of great information on the difference between a community bank and a credit union, or the difference between a community bank and a mega bank. The Go Local campaign that the ICBA does is a great campaign. Bank locally. If it's not my kind of bank, it should be another community bank. And we're a big proponent of that. We have customers that walk in that say that I've banked with a bank down in southern Minnesota. It's a community bank. I banked there for 30 years. And we say, absolutely, that's fantastic. Great. We love that you're with a community bank. So do a little research, chat GPT on what the difference is between a community bank and a credit union, and just educate yourself, because what community bankers do is really good work. It's very people that are very passionate about their communities and serve a real great purpose. So get involved.
Man, that's good stuff, Randy. And all of those that you mentioned, and your bank's website, and Bank in Minnesota and ICBA, and all of those, we'll include those links to those in the show notes as well. So for anybody that's driving down the road or riding a bike or something, listening to this, we'll include those. So thanks for sharing those. And most of all, thanks for sharing your time today and this story. It's forward moving and inspirational, I think, for the industry, Randy, and knew that it would be. So can't thank you enough for being with us today.
Appreciate it, Chris, Dan. It was great speaking with you guys. I think you guys are doing great work, and appreciate you being resources for community banks around the country.
You got it.
Yeah, thank you, Randy.
Yep, that's our mission and our passion. So,
All right.
there
Awesome.
you go. Thank you, Randy.
Okay. God bless.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.